Hello everyone. This channel is going to be called Insignant. And I know this little homemade movie is not high tech. I don't intend it to be. I'm aware that it's not. I don't expect it to ever be. But what I feel is is more important than being high tech or high quality is the content. This is a call to you who are being stirred in your spirit for a move to the Ozarks, and you may be poor and handicapped, and you understand you want to do some agrarian living, but you may not have all the skills. So this place involves apprenticeship. We do believe in family structure and biblical doctrines. We want to be like-minded. We want to be a like-minded community in the Ozarks. I put this last little kicker in there, knowing how YouTube has its algorithms, and when you put that right there with that together, it puts you, they tumble you around and you get kind of up to the top of the selection because of that. But it's really, on my point of view, it's not being silly. On my point of view, I'm understanding that it'll get some views because of this. But the word stupid, if you look up Matthew 25, the foolish virgins, the 5 foolish and the 5 wise, the 5 foolish virgins were, they call foolish in the King James, but when you look up that Greek word moron, stupid, stubborn, foolish. So the true meaning of that word foolish virgins are stupid and stubborn when they don't have to be. They could be wise, but there's a recipe how one can be wise. But apparently they did not heed it, and it was too late for them, and it didn't turn out well. We'll get into it some other time. But what I talk about is insignant. This was told to me in a dream to be that way. But a long time ago, even before internet was on, or there was such a thing as YouTube. And our community that we have, it's not a church type system. It's more of an Acts, the book of Acts type community. And it's not a one purse, although a family is one purse. You have a mom and dad and their children, it's a one purse. The mom and dad hold the purse for the whole family. That is a one purse structure. So if you want to say it, I cannot truly say it's not a one purse, because every family has to have their own purse to function as a family. And to go beyond that, it could, but there's got to be a lot of understanding before you go any further with that. Trust, reasoning, wisdom, understanding. The worldly way, when they do one purse, they'll get attorneys and contracts and things like that, because they don't trust each other. And not that I'm saying wouldn't do anything like a contract or anything, but you can always tear a contract up. But a person who makes a promise, they should, before you have an oath, you should, consider what you're vowing. So, okay, the channel is Insignant, And I need to put on there the address where a person can correspond with us. And I'll put that on there later on in this part. But we're in the Ozarks. We moved in the Ozarks it's over 2 decades ago. And of all the places to live, some people say it's a safe zone, but that's not why we moved here. It's kind of comforting to know that when the balloon pops, like people say, that the Ozarks are a safe zone. We're not in the flatlands of Arkansas. We're in the hills. And we used to live further north where you didn't have a lot of growing degree units. So from where we came from to where we are now, we have double the growing degree units. So it gives you a longer growing season. It's also easier on your animals. So if you're raising any kind of livestock or chickens, you have to, when you're further north, you have to be concerned about their water freezing, just freezing to death out of the wind chill factors. You have to, because you don't have enough growing degree units, you're storing a lot of feed instead of having the animals outside year-round like we are here. They're outside year-round, and they can forage 12 months out of the year instead of 6. And they say it's better for your gardening, better for your livestock, better for your animals, better for the human person. When your water freezes, you have to contend with a lot of issues that you normally don't have to when you're living in the southern states. And the story that we've gotten here, it's a long one, but maybe I could share that later on. But we want to do agrarian living. If that's you, I want to repeat this again, that this is a call and an invite to someone who is poor or handicapped, that you want to be in agrarian type living. And some of you maybe want to have a apprenticeship type program, that you understand you don't know very much about agrarian living. You don't know very much about how to garden or can or get wild game and prepare it and butcher it. How would you survive in an adverse environment? Now, being that we move further south, that is very helpful. Your adverse environment is not so adverse as it is in the northern states, for sure. So if you could, if you believe that you want to be in this type of a system, a community, you can write to us. We'll correspond. And like I say, this is a call out to those who are believers and fear God and have to be like-minded. But this comes with a relationship. And but we've been here in Arkansas for over 2 decades. And we have a property that we would like to share with other believers. And it reminds me of the 2 lepers in the Bible, when I think it was a Syrian camp that was raided, and they come across the spoilage, and they were just eating because everybody was starving. And then they started to fear, and they says, you know what, if we don't tell somebody else, something bad would happen to us. And that's how I felt. We have more than enough where we are, and we would like to share it with other believers who are like-minded in a community that understand that agrarian living is beneficial to the end time believers. So some of this channel is going to include some homemade music, biblical doctrines, and like it says, there'll be certain things discussed on that last one. But we want to have a like-minded community, all including family structure. But again, it's for a call for the people who would like a piece of land, or they don't know how to get the start going. They feel an urge that they must move, or they must do something different than what they are, and they're financially tapped. And I'll tell you, I do understand you cannot afford to make all the mistakes unless you have a big purse. But there's not a lot of people out there that have a big purse that can just squander it and not have any apprenticeship. Just go out there and make a bunch of mistakes, and it's going to be costly. But after a while, I've seen a lot of people in this area and that have moved and got a little piece of ground. They started making mistakes. They found out they could not bring an income in because the hole on the bucket was bigger than the hole on the top, and they kept pouring it in the bucket, and it was going out faster than they could pour it in, and they had to quit. And they got so beat down that it's going to be hard for them to come back and do it again, because they understand how hard it is, and they feel trapped. They feel cornered. They feel like there's no hope. But there is hope. And that's what we're on this channel right now, to tell somebody that there is hope. And like I say, in this agrarian lifestyle, we do practice home canning, home gardening, home saving seeds, butchering, raising your animals, raising. Don't go and be buying chickens. You raise your own chickens. The hens nest them until they hatch out the babies. The ducks hatch out the babies. We have fishing and preparing your own food, that you do not have to venture off and have a big grocery bill. Another reason why we moved further south was because of the growing degree days. Trees grow here twice as fast as what they where I grew up. The fish, you can raise twice as many fish as where I used to live. They spawn here, like the bluegill and brim will spawn several times a year, not just once in the spring, but they'll spawn several times a year. And because of the warmer water, they eat more, they grow faster. The population, to me, it explodes. And if you like fish, and I know it's not quite agrarian living, but it's all part of country living in the country, being self-sufficient, it just has a play in it. It has its part. You say this is an invite to somebody who feels you're trapped and you don't know how it'll ever happen, but this just might be your time for you. But like I say, we have to have contact. This is not an open invite to everybody who is poor and handicapped. It is the poor and handicapped who are in this zone here. Agrarian living, biblical doctrines. We will discuss them later on. Who believe in family structure. And they are believers, ones who fear God, Jehovah. and believe in his son Yeshua. And that's who the call is going out for. If you've done it to the least of these, my brethren, that's who it is going out to. The call is going out to the brethren. Not just anybody who's poor or handicapped. The brethren. The widows who are widows indeed. Not the widows who are dead while they liveth. The widows indeed. That's the ones that call is going out to. We're in the Ozarks, and I'm going to put down the address here, so if you see this, you can write us, and we'll start a dialogue from there. So, thank you. Here's the address that you can write to. Box 101, Wiseman, Arkansas, 72587. We have things that we have at the property. Logging equipment, a sawmill, horses, cattle. We can raise our own animals, plenty of firewood, fishing. It's an agrarian type living. Have tons of compost. So the rice and beans aspect is really not a big concern of mine. Actually, being like-minded is really a bigger concern of mine. And if you get to know me, you'll see that that's more of my focus than the rice and beans. We can get rice by the ton, and for just a few dollars. And so the rice and beans issue isn't really an issue as much as being like-minded, because there's a lot of things that a person could eat that they're not aware of. If you're not an agrarian type person and you live at the grocery store, you're not aware of the things that are available to you because you're just not in an environment. You're not in an agrarian country style environment, and you may have food, you're surrounded by food, and you be looking right at it, but you can't figure out what to eat. I can give you a small example. It's actually kind of silly but sad. My first cousin, she was raised on a dairy farm, and so they knew they had chickens and critters, and they had a dairy. But when she grew up, she went to the city, my first cousin, and raised a family. And her daughter came over to my relative's place, and they were visiting, and they went to the chicken coop in the morning to get some eggs. And my cousin's daughter, she's already a teenager, she couldn't figure out, why are we reaching in these boxes and getting eggs in the box? How come they're not in a carton? And what are these eggs doing out here in this little barn? And it just, with the birds, she just couldn't comprehend it, what it was. And it was just one generation that it was so much removed of the practical lifestyle It was just gone. It wasn't there. It wasn't installed. She just didn't know where eggs came from. And here you're highly educated, and you have your degrees of education, and some simple thing like just to get an egg. And so when my cousin explained to her, like, why are these eggs in these boxes, and the chicken laid them, so how does the chicken place them there? And so when she went through the details of how that egg arrived out the back end of the chicken, she got the dry heaves. She said, I'll never eat a farm egg. I'll only eat a store egg from now on. And it's kind of silly. And I could tell you a lot of stories that I found that people, they just don't know. They just don't know a lot of stuff about gardening or lumber or construction skills or animal husbandry. They go and they buy a box of 25 chicks and they die on them, and they didn't know what they did wrong, and they just go buy some more. They'll go to a local sale barn, and they will buy a calf, and the calf dies on them, or the goat dies on them, and they didn't know what happened. And see, if there was apprenticeship, but I can tell that there's not much of that going on out there, where somebody who knows and has done this and is capable of taking somebody under their arm and helping them learn, not by mistakes but by success. Learn by success. Somehow we think that we have to do a bunch of mistakes to learn. The more mistakes, the more learning. If you really stop and think that through. So a successful person, they had to make a lot of good decisions in their life, not a lot of bad ones. Usually a person that makes an abundantly poor decisions, just overwhelming poor decisions, usually not successful. But if you surround yourself with somebody who is more successful and has been successful in what you're looking at for several years already, it would be better for that person to get under the wings of that somebody who's successful than to just get under somebody who's still making mistakes themselves, or go and make your own mistakes. Either way, just the path of mistakes to me is not a very good way to go learn. If you get under apprenticeship, say if you took Jesus and his disciples, Jesus didn't turn around and say, boys, you got to make a bunch of mistakes, otherwise you never learn the truth. No, just follow me and I'll tell you, don't do this and don't do that, and this is what you must do. And then there was success, not making a decision that, well, we've got to make mistakes, otherwise we will not learn. To me, it just, the world has a lot of these concepts that people use, and they never thought about them, that mistakes, we got to learn from our mistakes. So do you need to get more mistakes to learn some more? Or could you really learn from not making? Can you learn if you did something and you did not make any mistakes? Do you realize you could learn and not make mistakes and learn? Somehow it's hard to understand that people will pause and they'll have to think that through, and they'll say, you mean I can learn without making mistakes? And it's like amazing. It's like, why, sure. I mean, what's wrong with that? You don't have to make mistakes every time you learn. In fact, you can learn without making mistakes. And why does it elude people? It's a mystery. But apprenticeship, I feel it's important to go under somebody's wing. Say if you're going to learn how to cut lumber, or if you're going to even cut yourself some firewood, or it's good to get under somebody's wing who has already done it. It's just like Christ. It's good to get under his wing who has been successful, so that you can learn how to walk that walk, and so that you can combat against temptations, so that you don't have to fail. You can get under the apprenticeship of Christ and be successful, and you don't have to be making mistakes, so that you can say, I'm learning. In fact, you can live a life that you're not making mistakes and learning. So we would truly like to be into biblical doctrines, and like it's stressed again, like-minded, in a community that we're like-minded. That's what makes the community, is being like-minded. And out of these things like rice and beans, this things like living in the Ozarks, I'm sure there is other places to live. I'm sure there is. I know there is other places to live other than the Ozarks. In fact, if I had another multiple choice to choose from, my second choice would be the Appalachians. I really liked the Appalachians. A little more population, and the property taxes are higher there, and the cost of living is higher there. And it just has a few things against it, but otherwise it seemed like a very nice place, part of the Appalachians. So that was one. I just told you some of the reasons why we chose the Ozarks. The property taxes are, if you're going to own property, the property taxes are cheaper here. They cost less. So your taxes are less here for a property owner than around other places of the nation. The climate is one thing. I discussed that earlier. In our area here, you have a more humble people. So there's other folks that they don't have a lot. And if you ever end up the place where you're just rice and beans, you don't stick out. And if you are a humble person, you would fit in. But if you're a bragger and you got your nose in the air and you're a proud person, you're going to stick out. And especially in this place. But I guess if you were out east, and I used to be out there once in a while out east, and there's some of those urban cities where they have their nose in the air, and they can tell you everything, but they can't. They feel like they know everything, and you need to sit and listen to them, and it's just a different attitude. There's a difference between a humble person and a proud person, and when you're amongst people that have been beat down, they don't have a lot of money and they don't have a big purse. They have an attitude adjustment. And it's good to be around, even if you have people who are non-believers. It's just better to be around somebody that is appreciative of the small things and thankful. And it's just a better environment to be living in. Not that you have like a close relationship with people who are not believing, but if you are that same mindset, that you're not a proud person and you're a humble person and you are content with food and raiment, and you're not a person that is trying to get the newest thing that's out there and visiting the newest amusement park that's constructed, or you're not into the modern things that if I don't have it, I'm not happy, then you'd have a hard time fitting in here. But I do know that it's the whole nation is gravitating that way. Their lusts and their cravings, their desires are wanting more of this world. And there are some people who are poor. They really don't have a lot of money to blow, or but they'll blow it on things they don't need. I can give you an example. We used to sell firewood years ago, and some people would they're poor and they're living on assistance, and so our firewood was the cheapest in the whole county. In several counties, we have the cheapest firewood around. And they says, "Can you spot us till we get some money?" And we'd say, "Yeah, we we'll help you out." But then you find out later that as soon as they took the firewood, they went to town and had pizza, went bowling. And so those kind of people, that's not who I really want to help out. I mean, if somebody tricks me, I will remember they tricked me. They tricked me. And so they really were not down and out. They're just a mismanager. And then I don't have sympathy for somebody, basically I'm going to go bowling and go on pizza and on your nickel. And I myself ain't going bowling or having pizza. I could, but because I don't, I'm not all worked up about it because I don't. And there's a people out there that if they don't get their way, they're having a little personal fit. And like I said, we want to help people who really truly need the help. Truly need the help. That's who we want to help. We do not want to help a taker or somebody who's trying to trick us, or somebody who's not sincere and they did not learn contentment. Like the Bible says. They did not learn contentment like the Bible says. They're a discontented person. If they're a discontented person and they're a murmurer and they're unthankful, you don't have to bother writing. But if you are a contented person, you've had learned contentment and understand what it is, or unless you are sincerely working on it, and you want to be in this type of lifestyle with family structure, biblical doctrines, be in some apprenticeship in a community that's like-minded who fears Jehovah, then you can write us, and we'll take it from there. Thank you.